and remain such incredible linchpins of this community. In my mind, in the same way as in the ancient world, they say that all roads eventually led to Rome. I think that all paths in the principles, certainly in principles training, either come from or lead to George and Linda Pransky. And on a personal level, I just want to share with you that a year ago today, on the 8th of June, I was throwing up and had a terrible high fever. And that was because George and Linda were meant to speak at our conference last year. And unfortunately, they had to cancel last minute because George needed an emergency operation and subsequently had a stroke. And I went straight after the conference to visit him in Washington State. And I was there. I was on the ground for less time than I was in the plane. I don't recommend doing that to the West Coast of America. It was very hard going. And I got on the plane on the way back, and just about when they switched the seatbelt signs off, I just managed to make it to the bathroom before I threw up for the first time. And I made it to the bathroom, but not to the toilet bowl. But we won't go into that any further. You don't need to hear more details of that. Wasn't a very pleasant experience. But anyway, it's very memorable for me this time last year as a result, because I was really incredibly got really sick as a result of it. But it was really amazing to see George and Linda during that time. And it makes it so much more meaningful for me to see George sitting here today, so well, so healthy, so with it, so on the ball, back to his own self. I've really kind of kept an eye on George over the last year and watched him recover in incredible and beautiful ways from his experience with great grace and with incredible courage. And the George that I see today in my mind is a stronger, a wiser, and a deeper version of his old self. But I'll let you guys see that for yourself. And it really, really gives me incredible pleasure to introduce George and Linda Pransky.
Thank you, Shaw. That's quite
very gracious, Shaw.
Quite an amazing introduction.
Yeah.
Oh, so here, I could see some of you. Oh, hi. Hello. My goodness. Oh my goodness. Look at all these faces. I know.
Whoa.
And we know some of you. I actually know some of you.
Really?
Oh, I know I'm gonna waste time by flipping through to see all your faces, so I'm gonna stop that. And start. I mean, our topic is hope and possibility. And yesterday we did an hour for the people who work in the healthcare community in England. And we talked about how important state of mind is and how it matters to the person, to the practitioner, and also to the patient, the feeling that they come from, the feeling that they work from, and the feeling that they give their client, how much that matters. And we used our own story, as a metaphor for that. We used, or for as an example of that, because we found the state of mind of hope in our recovery. I say our recovery because, George had a stroke, but, I had my own stroke, my own version of a stroke. And after the initial shock and devastation of that happening, we both found the feeling of hope, and that feeling was so incredibly stabilizing to both of us. And out of that feeling of hope, we saw possibility. It's like possibilities come in the feeling of hope. And interestingly, the creative mind gets accessed in the feeling of hope. We got very creative about recovery. But I was talking with our practice manager yesterday, Terry Cunningham, and she was saying to me, she says, you have to tell them that it's not hope for a thing. And I said, well, what do you mean, Terry? She says, well, when you talk about it, you're not talking about hoping for something to happen.
A specific thing, yeah.
A specific thing. You're just living in the feeling of hope, and it's lighting your way.
And it's what?
Lighting your way.
Lighting the way, yeah.
Because that's the way, in my mind's eye, when I would get deeply in the feeling of hope, that it really felt like a pathway of feeling that would stabilize me, nourish me, and give me good ideas about how to go about things. Because, ironically, Mr. Verbal here, Mr. Communicator, the stroke essentially wiped out his speech center. Mm-hmm. So he had to recover that. And we didn't know. We didn't know, right? But the feeling of hope, when I did hope for things in that feeling, I wrote them in pencil. I wrote what I hoped for in pencil because I didn't want to get attached to outcome. I just wanted to live in the feeling. And it's not that George and I didn't get into feeling, like I got into thought storms of worry. So I'd go out of hope and get into big time thought storms of worry. But I would always come back to the feeling of hope, and it was like my home base. And it seems like such a poignant, discussion or conversation right now in this world, the state of mind of hope, not hope for anything particular, but just the state of mind of hope that will guide us and allow us for our thinking to be better about what could be possible, what's next. You have anything you want to say?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay. So I was reflecting on the whole idea of deeper feeling, because hope is a deeper feeling. And when I'm in the feeling of hope, I'm out of my personal mind. I'm out of my personal habits. I'm out of my ways of thinking about things. I'm out of my insecurities when I'm in the feeling of hope. But I remember years ago Sid saying to me, he said, people don't realize it, but they're filled with positive feeling that they can access, and they just don't. They're just full of positive feeling. And I was so intrigued by that statement that he made, because I'd never thought about it, because I'd always thought about feeling as emotion, feelings being emotions. But he was talking about something else. He was talking about what you might call spiritual feelings. Because to me, hope is a spiritual feeling. It comes from the spirit, and it supports the spirit. It supports resiliency. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, it doesn't really matter what deeper feeling you're in, or what deeper feeling you access, whether it's hope or faith or love or gratitude or compassion. But I think the deeper feelings matter. They matter to us as individuals, and they matter to us as a community. They matter to us as in the world. I mean, I think we need them. We need those deeper spiritual feelings now. Because I don't know, if I didn't understand what I understand about the three principles and accessing a spiritual feeling, I I was telling people yesterday, I would have what would be called compassion fatigue. You know, I just learned about compassion fatigue. I always thought of that as burnout. But I know for myself, if I didn't have the understanding of the three principles and the understanding of how to access a deeper feeling, and in this case, the feeling of hope, I would have definitely burned out in this year of all that we had to do to rehab George and all that we were up against in terms of, well, everything that we did.
Well, you know, I was thinking to myself when we were preparing for this talk that I remember one of my doctors who was was trying to help us with our rehab, and he temporarily got very discouraged and said, I'll tell you the truth, I don't like doing this rehab because I find it very discouraging that people get very hopeful and then all of a sudden they give up. That's it. So they get hopeful, and then when they see how much work it is to rehab, they give up, and that's the end of the end of their rehab. I said, well, then how do you get them back? I mean, what happens then? He says, well, they kind of go through the motions, and that's it. And I said to him, you know, I'm hoping that won't happen with me, but if you think that's happening, I want you to get on my case and really shake me up, and because I don't want that happen to me. Well, that really affected him, and he took it as a kind of a promise on my part that I would make sure that he rehabbed, and I didn't think that he need to promise, because I fully intended to do everything I could to rehab, but he took it as a sacrament. I mean, he was all over it. Now, the context of it that I realized later is that people had, in myself is included, I had all these big ideas of rehabbing, but then suddenly I had the realization, you know, I might never do another seminar in my life. I won't have a chance to, I won't even be able to do speaking engagements. And I got very, very down when I realized that it was a brand new ball game, and I didn't know how much I'd be able to bring to the table, and I didn't think it was necessarily going to be enough to make me a proper professional. And I only got bummed out for maybe a couple hours, but I was, and then I realized that if I didn't do anything, if I didn't want to be seminar leader, or I wasn't capable of, I could do anything I wanted. I could do anything I wanted. And the idea that I could do anything I wanted was my new hope. That was the hope. I had no specific thing that I wanted to do, but knowing that I could do whatever I wanted was a specific hope. And that gave me, you might say, a generic uh, possibility. I was just,
but it set you free, didn't
it set me free. I thought, gee, if I can do anything I want, I can do anything I want. I can do anything I want, and I didn't have to attach it to a specific uh, possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you bring it back to me in the hospital, having conversations with people, I realized that I didn't have to have any specific idea of what I was gonna do, I might do. Just having an indiscriminate hope was enough, and that's where I'd gone wrong with myself and with the people, the other patients uh, that I associated with. They wanted to have a specific hope. There was something that they were gonna wanted to go back to in their old life, or there was something that they felt it was not a possibility, and they were very, very sad about that. Like, I had one guy who was on the floor, and he he thought he was capable of doing sophisticated uh, sophisticated work in computer science, but he didn't have enough understanding to do this specific work, and so he essentially gave up. And there was someone else there who could do this specific work that they were wanting to do, but they wouldn't be very good at it. That was a problem for them, that they couldn't be. So I kind of went past these in like a high helicopter. I went over these things, and I was very fortunate that I had the thinking that allowed me to do it. And that wasn't a problem for me, that I had nothing specific that I wanted to do with my life.
But don't you think that generically it's true for human beings that when they set their mind free, at some point they're going to think of something else that they want to do?
I'd like to think that the people are prone to doing that.
No, but they could do it.
They could do it, yeah. Absolutely.
They don't do it.
That's
because
true.
They don't understand that if they would get over their attachment to the past, what they used to be or how they used to be, or get over their attachment, that it would free their mind. And then, because we are such creative beings, that something's going to show up. Some form is going to show up in their mind.
Yeah.
Some thought, some idea.
That's true.
And that's what that's what happens when you free your mind. You see new possibilities. Yeah.
And I feel like I lucked out in that I had that period when I was thinking, oh my God, there's nothing that I can do. And then I realized that means I can do anything. I had that realization, and that's what freed me to the possibilities. So when I was doing the rehab, I didn't have any particular goals or any place I wanted to go, and and that freed me to just do as well as I could, and not concern about myself,
And see
about
what
the,
happened.
the progress. And to me, that was there was no there was no form in my rehab. It was all possibilities, and it was all spiritual. It was spiritual.
Mhm.
Whatever had to be, it could be. It could be anything, and that's what was so precious to me, is I was free to have any path that was available to me. I could do it, and I felt that freedom. And I'm a little long-winded here. I don't know what's going on, but that, that was very, very meaningful to you. I wish I'd seen that earlier in this podcast, because I didn't realize that I had that feeling of freedom. And to me, that was a spiritual feeling that was infinite. It was infinite. Whatever I wanted to do, that I could I could go there, and that was enormously helpful. It was not tied to any expectation or any goal or any possibility. It was just there for the taking.
Do you think the other people that were attached to outcome and got depressed, and kind of got stuck, do you think that they would have rehabbed better? I mean, would they, if they had the same kind of feeling, the feeling of freedom that you realized, do you think they would have, it affected their
I think
ability to rehab and get?
I think I think it had the potential to do that, and I know that discouragement and goals was a big problem to the unit. That there wasn't a person in the unit that didn't suffer from uh, disappointment and discouragement. They just you could see that they quickly picked on that was what was about, and uh, and they essentially tried to live through other people's successes, and it really helped me that my rehab person didn't go that route. He was willing to take whatever successes came our way, and go with it. And that's why he was thrilled with the idea of rehabbing us and me. Yeah, what I was trying to say in my own way is, I didn't realize how significant it was that I didn't have specific rehab goals, and I was open ended, so I kind of had a spiritual commitment to what I was doing rather than a finite commitment. And the finite commitment, it would have left me wanting, and would have been leading me to compare myself with how I would normally behave, or giving myself expectations that would have seemed unrealistic. So I was fortunate that I I didn't go there. I didn't go there. I just wanted to do as well as I could do. That worked for me. And then now when I get caught in expectations, I still caught that Linda helps me to she when I can't get words or I can't think about things intelligently, she helps me out. She's my guiding light, you might say.
That's a hard act to follow right there.
Really?
Yeah. I loved what you said. I haven't heard you say that before.
Yeah, I did. It's funny. I remembered that part of my rehab, and I'd forgotten it.
But I didn't, I've never heard you talk about rehab as a spiritual experience,
Yeah,
as opposed to goals and expectations trying to get somewhere. But it was a spiritual experience. It was like, but I would go in and out of that feeling too, of it being a spiritual experience in my own way. I just remember, I don't know, from that feeling of hope, that I would just feel like something was going to happen and it was going to be okay. However it happened, it was going to be okay.
yeah.
Like wherever you got to or wherever we got to, it was going to be okay.
It really, like the other part of it is, it was very easy to be grateful.
Yeah.
When you didn't have any expectations. It was very easy to be grateful because, I mean, I would fill up with gratitude when I could find my toothbrush. I would feel, wow, this is amazing. Hey, sweetheart, I found my toothbrush. This is amazing. It didn't take much for me to be grateful. If I could be grateful just that I found my toothbrush, even though I had been looking for it for 15 or 20 minutes, you knew that I was pretty easily satisfied. Yeah.
Oh, I was, I was grateful that you recognized me after you had your stroke.
Yeah.
Because when I heard you had a stroke and I rushed to the hospital, I didn't know if you'd recognize me. And so when you recognized me, I felt so grateful for that.
Mm. Yeah. And all the people that were so supportive of me, I just couldn't possibly thank them enough. All my friends.
Like I couldn't, like we were talking right before that you all came into the room. We were talking with Shawl and we were reminiscing, and Shawl had come, he flew to visit George in the hospital right after the conference last year for 24 hours. He did a 24-hour trip. Did a turnaround. And it meant so much when he showed up and we saw him and George saw him. It meant so much to you, didn't it? That he came and visited. Yeah.
A lot of other people were like that too.
Yeah.
Very, very generous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that I could reminisce a little bit about what the good old days, where I just filled. I was.
You mean
filled,
the good old days in the hospital?
Yeah, like I was filled with hope and possibility and gratitude.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for any specific outcome whatsoever. It was just a feeling that I picked up in my travels.
Mhm. Well, I don't know if we can take questions or not, but does anybody have anything that they want to ask? Or
Can we take questions, Julian?
Yeah, we can. If people want to ask a question, they should click the participants button at the bottom, and that'll bring up a section on the right where they can raise their hand and I will unmute them.
because I mean, I think that it's what George said was so poignant about. I don't even remember exactly what he said, but it really affected me, the whole.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Nicola.
Yeah.
Hi, Linda. Hi, George.
Hi.
Oh, hey, Nicola.
Hey, really love to see you looking so well. It's great. Actually, my question's for Linda. Like, I'd love to hear what you see differently, or what you took away from that experience of over the last year, George being unwell. Like, what's changed in your understanding as a result of everything you've been through?
I didn't know I had it in me. Just the strength of, I mean, I had to negotiate my thinking in that after George's stroke, it's like I had to take over the business. I had to take over the finances. I took over his rehab. I worked full time. And I had help, but I was okay. That's the thing, is I was okay. I just had no idea I could do it all and be okay. The strength, the ability, the what came out of me. And again, I have to say that being able to stabilize in the feeling of hope was so nourishing. I didn't know that that could happen to me, where I could live for so long in a deep feeling that would nourish me like that, and do everything else I was doing. So it just, I just found strength and resources in myself that I just didn't know I had. And
we got unbelievably close, feelings close.
we got so grateful for each other, and so
Yeah.
grateful for got so much gratitude, not just for each other, but for our friends and our family and for life. And
it was really almost embarrassing that in retrospect, we weren't as grateful as we could have been.
mm-hmm.
We just didn't know what to make of it, and we fell in love so strongly that it seemed like we were way closer than we were
before. But
yeah.
it used to annoy me a bit when people would say at the beginning, you know, the gift, there's always gifts with a stroke. And I'm thinking, yeah, you want to trade places with me? Have this gift. But the thing is, it's true. It's like, our life is our feeling is so much richer day to day. And I don't know, just life is just so much more meaningful and precious. And so there was a gift to it in that. I don't know if that answers you, Nicola. But it just was amazing that, and it's not like me, when I say me, like the strength that came out of me, it's like I realized it's just the strength of the spirit. It's just the strength of the spirit. It's what everyone is capable of if they don't get lost in their insecure thinking. I mean, George and I could, if we didn't know what we knew, we could have gotten completely lost in our insecure thinking and ended up in a corner somewhere.
Yeah.
Depressed, right? You depressed and me burnt out.
Yeah.
But because we know we don't have to, we don't have to live in our insecure thinking. There's deeper, we have a deeper access to mind that we can go to. It just, I mean, I wish everyone knew that. I wish, and some people do and some people don't. But I wish everybody knew.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Sue.
Hi, George and Linda. This is the first time I've seen you guys talk, and I've heard a lot about you through people that I'm learning the 3 Ps through. And I think it's just phenomenal that, and I love the fact that George has just said he'd never thought about this before, and it's something that resonated with me, is the point you made about judging yourself, and that he realized he didn't need to judge himself in hospital and set himself expectations, and that was what really set him free. And I don't know, I just wanted to share with you how much that meant, hearing that, because it's something I do quite a lot myself, and I'm a happy person, but I do judge myself, and I love the fact that that's just come to you today. And I think it's phenomenal. It's a fantastic point for people to take away from this. What a wonderful thing to realize that if you don't judge yourself, you're free.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for
Yeah.
saying that.
That's so clear.
Yeah,
And so obvious.
Yeah.
If you don't judge yourself, you're free.
If you don't judge yourself, you're free. Yeah. Wow.
Okay. We have Judy who wants to ask a question.
Okay. Can I? Is it time?
Hey,
Judy.
where are you? I'm trying to find your picture.
Yeah. Hi. So I am so inspired by what you talked about, and I just was just crying listening, George, to you talking about your rehab, because it's a very big deal, rehab. But I wondered, my question is for either one of you, because I don't know who he might have asked, but I wondered if your doctor or any of the rehab people asked you about your good attitude, or inquired, or were touched by, or interested in exploring with you what was going on, and learning from you. Because I think that this, I'm having been through quite a bit of rehab myself in the last few years. I was sort of surprised that they would all compliment me about the good attitude I had, and I wasn't going through anything near like what you were, but they never asked me about it. And I was just wondering if anyone had inquired or said, "Gee, George, what is it that that keeps you going like this?"
Well, Judy, to be honest with you, I thought they were kind of holding their breath that things were going so well for Linda and I. In other words, they weren't getting behind it. They weren't curious about it. They were just saying, well, you know, if it's going good, leave it alone.
Yeah.
So they couldn't get it behind it. They couldn't appreciate it. They just
They weren't. It was really interesting because they'd say, well, you know, 9 people out of 10 that have had open heart surgery and then a stroke end up on medication for depression.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they were like, well, you're lucky, George, you know, good for you.
Yeah.
That you're, you know, that you're not on medication and that you're doing so well, because most people don't, or, you know, most people have a really, really hard time.
But
And-
they really weren't very curious, and they couldn't get out of the room fast enough.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And a lot of them would say to me, now don't get too hopeful, dear.
That's what they said.
Don't get too, and I'd look at them like they were crazy,
Yeah.
you know, and I would just immediately, when they would do that, I'd just walk away.
Yeah.
I'd go and I'd say to myself, not listening to you, because, you know, people tell you, people told us everything. You can't imagine what people said.
Right.
And I basically just didn't listen to them unless they were like super positive.
Yeah, and the other thing that we decided, we weren't going to have any rehab friends.
Mm-hmm.
So people wanted to get along and learn from each other, and
Mm-hmm.
what I thought they wanted to do was commiserate with each other. That's what I thought. That's what I made of it. Well, they really had a problem that I didn't want any rehab buddies. So if it was up to them,
Yeah.
they wanted me to have rehab buddies. I didn't want any rehab buddies.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be affected by the fact that they were
Having trouble.
Yeah, that they were having trouble and so down in the mouth. I just didn't want to do that. And Linda and I went through a tremendous trouble. It meant we couldn't eat at the dining room. They wanted us to eat at the dining room. We didn't want to do that, so we had to do everything on our own.
Well, you know, I essentially put a kitchen in his room.
Yeah.
Along the window, there was a kitchen.
Yeah. Well, I asked that because I feel like that's been a longstanding issue in our work, is that people are very touched by the way people in our situation and with our understanding go about things, but they don't seem to ask about it. You know, it's like you get labeled as, well, they're the outliers, they're different, they're doing so much better, but nobody ever says, gee, what do you know? And I was hoping, I was really thinking, God, what a wonderful service it would be to others who have to go through rehab. If your rehab facility understood how to lead people towards their wisdom and not discourage them. But anyway, thank you. And I'm so thrilled by your story, and thank you so much for sharing.
We know, Judy, it always puzzles me what you're puzzled by has puzzled me as well, because what they would just do is just say, oh, well, they say to George, well, you're just an exception.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But if they only knew, it's like everybody could be an exception.
But the heart surgeon that went to, he was totally blown away by our rate of progress of our rehab.
Uh-huh.
And he went to Kaiser and said, I think you should put this couple on the fast track.
Uh-huh.
And they said, well, we don't want to, we only can have so many people on fast track because, we're trying to serve who need people, serve the people who need the help.
Yeah.
We have enough problems, deal with them, rather than people who are on a fast track.
Yeah.
You know, we just can't.
Well, they felt he was rehabbing too fast.
Yeah.
To go to this intensive rehab facility, and his heart surgeon said, no, he's the perfect candidate.
Yeah.
For intensive rehab. And they no, he's rehabbing fast enough. But his surgeon got him into that facility.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And it took him considerable difficulty.
Yeah.
He might have spent.
Well, he threatened him. Is what
Yeah,
he did. Yeah.
essentially
He got on the phone and threatened him.
Yeah.
He was great. We loved him. Yeah.
But he was an example of someone who absolutely saw the potential in what Linda and I were doing. It was as plain as the nose on his face, and he just got behind it big time.
He saw that we meant business. Yeah. That we were.
Oh.
So, you know, I mean, I know this is this whole past year, as hard as it's been, it's also been thrilling, fun, very meaningful and intimate and rich, and it's just been everything, and it's been quite a ride.
I mean, for one thing, it slowed down the world for us. Unbelievable. It's like we're going about our life, and then I'll say, is it really only 2 o'clock? I thought it was like nighttime or something. Like, no, it's only 2 in the afternoon. Well, it meant we had huge amounts of time unaccounted for. And that was a huge blessing. The days were so long. Of course, that's true with the virus as well, but they were long before the virus.
I think we might have time for one more question. I know we're meant to go till 7:30, but Chip's not starting till 7:45, so.
There is. Yes, there is. I just told her actually that I thought we were running out of time, but okay. So Valerie, if you would unmute yourself.
Cool. Thanks, Julia.
No problem.
Hi again, George. I was talking to you last night.
Oh, hey, Val.
Hi. It's lovely listening to your story. I don't really have a question. It was more sharing of something that I relate to, I suppose, more probably from Linda's perspective. This time last year, my son became so sick with multiple sclerosis that he was in a wheelchair. And the only option that I found was we could take him to Russia for a stem cell transplant. And he's 22. So we fundraised, we got 75,000 together in 3 months from the community, really, and where we live.
Wow.
And we brought him over, but the doctor who looked after the patients, stem cell patients, he gathered everyone together and he said, the way that people will heal, he said, the procedure is just one thing, but it's through love. This is what will heal you.
Oh, wow.
And he talked so much about this. And then Leon, who was very, very anxious and scared about doing this. I mean, I was too. But my son and I'd been in the conversation. I was so grateful for the last couple of years because I'd had my own issues, obviously, and obviously, that's how you come to the 3 principles, I think. So I was very grateful that I had been kind of for myself to hell and back. And I said, well, I got through that. I had a breakdown and now I was able to do this. But my son just went into this Zen-like state that was just so beautiful. And he sailed through the whole process.
Wow.
All of his numbers and all of his charts were great. And he even had to spend less time in isolation. And I was there for the actual transplant. And my other son had gone home at this stage. And it's a thing that I suppose you guys often talk about. you think you can't do something or you struggle with anxiety, but then you're in a room and your child is there and he's having a transplant and there's doctors everywhere. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what's happening? But I just remember the whole time we look back on this time as just being happy all the time. The three of us were sitting in his hospital room the whole time in Moscow in the middle of winter. And I was off out sightseeing, and, you know, it just comes back to the thing of, you know, it isn't circumstance, but also, yeah, that the whole emphasis for the healing and the recovery was about love.
I love that you said that. It's just, I mean, I see, if you can realize that, I mean, people think that, you know, oh, love is the answer, and yeah, I got to get in a good friend. But when you actually go through it and realize that it's true, it's very powerful.
And then strangely, at the same time, my mother went into hospital for a minor operation, which ended up being major heart surgery. So she was cut open from there to there. So she was in Ireland having this done, and we were over there. But my mom and dad have always had a very fractious relationship. But since this happened, they're like a 22-year-old couple.
Yeah.
Actually, I would say the best thing that has ever happened to them is that my mother had this thing, because my dad, it's like he woke up, they both woke up. Now they're crazy about each other. They're smiling all the time. And yeah, and it's true. And it is like, Linda, you were saying, because people say to me, oh, you know, there's learning in this and it's growth. And I'm like, oh, fuck yourselves, you assholes. But afterwards, like, you know, there is so much growth, and you do find yourself in your quiet moments going, God, you know, you'd be a little bit wary to say it, but you can be grateful almost that it happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
I guess when the outcome is good, it's easy to say that, right?
Yeah.
John's doing very well now. He can walk, you know, it's been amazing. But yeah, it's been, he just had to step out. We all step out of fear and into love. And that's what really worked. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Well, yeah. Nice to have, to be able to share it with ye.
Thank you, Valerie. And I think we're ready to go to move on to Chip. Thank you so much, George and Linda. That was really beautiful to hear. And I love that idea of open-handed hope. You know, I'd always seen hope as, like, you're right, around something specific.
Yeah.
Hope as something more spiritual in the broader sense is very meaningful for me. So thank you.
Yeah, it's very spiritual, and it delivers. It's very spiritual, and it's very nourishing.
Yeah.
It just nourished me and George for the whole year. It still does.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Is Chip's here, I assume?
Yeah, he is.
I am here. Hi, George and Linda. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome, Chip.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
So, Erlen, do you want to introduce Chip for us?
Yeah. So welcome, Chip.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. So before Chip starts talking, I'll give you a brief introduction. I'm sure a lot of you know who Chip is. But Chip is one of the people that was mentored and worked around and lived around Sydney Banks for a good number of years, and was kind of, I guess, a close student of Sid, even when he worked elsewhere. And I don't know if people know, but he's kind of done a variety of work and worked in the prisons, worked within organizations, worked with individuals. And in 2008 was part of the founding of the Three Principles School, which was set up to give a feeling of teaching the principles, or carry on teaching the principles as intended by Sydney Banks. And that's run by Elsie Spittle and Chip. And the way I think about it is, when I was younger, I used to do martial arts, and no one went to training as much as I did. I wouldn't take a job if it occurred when there was training. So, but one of the things that interested me was there would be students that would end up hanging around with the teacher. Now, what's interesting is they didn't go to any more classes than anyone else. In fact, I went to more classes than anyone else. But yet they learned quicker, and they weren't practicing the techniques more, and they weren't physically fitter. And it got on the back of my mind, how is it that they are better when they're not learning more, right? So shelve that. There was, after the founding of the Three Principles School, Chip and Elsie came down to Lacona to do like an in-service at Pransky and Associates. And the three of us were sitting in the lobby and we were talking, and all of a sudden I just was welled up with this overwhelming emotional feeling, and just, you know, found myself crying, not like weeping, but kind of just emotionally overwhelmed. And it was undeniably of substance, but seemingly hadn't come from anywhere. And it got me really curious about not just the principles. Like I knew the feeling of your consciousness was important, where you were coming from, but that purity of knowledge and information and understanding in feeling with no content, I hadn't really considered. And I've got more and more and more curious about that. And Chip and Elsie are the people that I've learned the most about that from, because you can see it and feel it in action. And as my respect for it has grown, I've started to appreciate, oh, that's a real thing. So I wanted to share that because of when we have Chip here, it's a pleasure to be able to have you know, a feeling for that dimension. And so I'm pleased to welcome you, Chip. And
what about the martial arts, Aaron?
What about the martial arts?
I don't know, you say you're going to come back to that.
I did?
I think you did. Maybe I misunderstood you.
Well, I did come back to it in the sense that the reason those students learn so much is they got a feel for the way the teacher went about things. And I guess thanks for prompting me. My sense from Chip and Elsie, and it's true from everyone that learned from Sid, but they were around him so much, they got X% more unconscious, not unconscious, but like immediate feel, and X% less content. So thanks for prompting me. I thought I'd said that. I definitely thought it.
Oh gosh. Well, I don't know that I've ever had a nicer introduction than that, Aaron. Thank you so much. That was really nice. So are we okay with sound at all?
Yeah, we're good, Chip.
Okay, great. Well, that really was a lovely introduction. And it's a good introduction for the subject which I was giving, which I have to read it. So, the unknown. Here we go. Learning to enjoy the unknown. Is it daunting, frightening, or exciting? Or is it all of the above, or none of the above? But I really enjoyed that introduction because it pointed to something that I know I've had a feeling for a long, long time. But I'd like to pick up on the theme that Aaron started just for a minute about that whole idea that you've often heard Sid say, or some of you will have heard Sid said, that there's information